Have you ever thought about creating your own watch or even your own watch brand? I know I certainly have. I've considered the sort of design of it. I even thought about logos and sort of names of it too. And that is difficult enough. But putting that aside, having sort of thought about a design, having thought about a name, gone through all that sort of creative process, do you know what you would then do next? What is the actual requirements of creating a watch? How do you do it? What do you do with absolutely no prior knowledge of what to do? What would you actually do next? Hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And honestly, I don't know. I've got a couple of very vague clues about what I possibly might do next, but rather than try and figure it out myself and then sort of try and tell you, I've got a better idea. I know somebody who has just gone through this process, had the thought that they wanted to create their own watch, went through the creative process of it, did all the things that require you to get a physical watch in your hand and put together a Kickstarter campaign. And that campaign is on the precipice of being launched. And I thought, oh, this person has just been through all these challenges, has just come across all these possible foreseen or even unforeseen hurdles about how to create a watch. So I thought I might just have a chat to him. I'm going to be talking to Tony from an upcoming brand called Ikara, a watch that I think looks fantastic and that I will be featuring in the semi-near future. But today, I am going to be talking a little bit about his brand and his watches with him, but primarily, and first of all, we're going to be talking about how exactly he created a watch. And when I was thinking about talking to Tony about this, well, I thought it'd be fantastic to bring along a friend of mine to assist because he's very good at these types of interviews. It's Praka, a good friend of mine. Praka is a podcaster from a podcast called Overtime, the podcast. If you haven't listened to a watch podcast before, this is the one to start with. So today, I'm going to be chatting to my friend Tony, who is just about to launch a watch brand, and Praka is going to be helping me have a bit of a chat. It's going to be a bit of an interview, but also a bit of a chat, talking about how to create a watch brand in reality, not just in theory. So let me jump over to this group chat and we'll get this talk started. Hello, I'm James. I'm sure you've probably seen me before or heard me before, but if not, my name is James. I'm from a YouTube channel called Watching James. And today I've actually invited Praka to be a part of this because we're going to be releasing this as a video on my channel, but also as an audio version on Overtime, the podcast.
Thank you very much for doing this. This is definitely going to be an interesting chat. And of course, last but not least, Tony.
Hello, guys. My name is Tony Suarez. I am the owner and founder of Ikara Watches, a new emerging brand from Latin America. And I'm really, really excited and honored that you invite me to this episode. Thank you very much.
We're stoked to have you on. So James, do you want to introduce us? How are we doing this today? So it's a little bit different to the usual conversations we have with brand owners. We're at least starting off a little bit different. So I'll let you introduce this because I guess this was more of your brainchild, really, when we started talking about it. So please.
Absolutely. Like, I'm really keen to talk to Tony about his brand, his origin story, the design of the watches, and I want to do that today. But I want to do that in the back half of the conversation because initially, what I'm really keen to learn about, find out about, and I think a lot of people who are going to be listening and watching this are quite keen as well, is just the mechanics of starting a brand from that first thought of, hey, I like watches. I'd love to make a watch. But then what do you do next? And Tony, you're right in this great position at the moment from this standpoint because you've gone through some of these challenges. You've created a watch. You've now got watches in your hand, literally as of in the last few weeks, and you're on the precipice of doing a Kickstarter campaign.
So we can now delve your knowledge and ask you some of these questions that I think we all just want to know. And I'm sure you would have loved to have watched an episode like this prior to you starting this creating a watch journey. So perhaps it could be helpful for some other people, but I think it'd actually just be quite interesting.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm not an expert, as you might imagine. It's my first watch, and for sure I have made some mistakes along the way. But I will try to lay out how I think it should be done, and it's basically the process I have been following since point, let's say, 0 until the moment where I am, which is basically about to launch the Kickstarter in at least a few months, because I want to make some noise first, some marketing first for ensure that the campaign will be successful. But first of all, I think you start with this idea, like, okay, I wanna make something. I imagine this idea come up differently to different people depending on how is their relationship to watches. But first of all, you need a solid, clear idea on how you want your first watch to look. And also you need to start thinking, or you need to have kind of a clear understanding on what will be the inspiration, or your main source of inspiration for your watch, because that will lead a lot of the promotional and a lot of the let's say communicational strategy along the way, which is something, to be honest, that it's quite important. And I think it's easy to lose yourself in just like, this is the design I want a pilot's watch or whatever, and not necessarily thinking how you are going to communicate why your pilot watch it's a little bit different than the other ones. So that's the first thing, right? Having a clear idea not only on your watch, but also why your watch is the way it is, and why that watch it's kind of different. Let's say you need to have a differentiation among the sea of micro brands and among the sea of brands you have, because if not, the idea is basically offering something to the market that is not there. So that's the first step. Once you have that more or less clear, you need to pass to the second step, which is actually designing the watch. And that is probably one of the most challenging parts for persons that don't necessarily have the technical education in design, because there you have two options. If you are not a designer yourself, which is my case, you have, by the way, if you want to interrupt me or whatever, please feel free of interrupt me. I like to talk, but if you need to interrupt me, we will just talk. This is a conversation.
I might just interrupt you right there. And again, this is not a conventional episode as we started off with, because we didn't start off with the wrist check. I can't believe that I forgot the wrist check. So we'll just take a little momentary pause, and we'll get to you lucky last. But I'll start off. I've got the RZE Resolute Stratus, nice enamel dial, titanium. I wore it all day today, and it's still on. So an easy watch. And James, yourself, what have you got on?
Well, I didn't do it deliberately because I thought this was a good episode to wear micro brands, but it wasn't the actual reason. I'm actually wearing two today because I just couldn't decide which, because they've both just arrived. One is the brand new Dorenzo Mondial, the slightly smaller version, which I think is just going to be an absolute hit. It's stunning. But then this one arrived today from HZ Watches, their HZ03, which is an Australian micro brand that, they're lovely as well. So it just turned out nicely that a micro brands was the flavor of the day, and I think it suits this episode. But it wasn't actually that reasoning. I was just wearing them anyway.
Exactly the same. And like I said, lucky last, Tony. What's on your wrist?
Well, in my case, I am having for the first time live in somewhere my Ikara Flame Sacred Cayman, which is the watch, one of the watches that are going to be launched as part of the Kickstarter campaign. It's funny, really, how to see something that comes from your mind sitting in your wrist. It's actually pretty cool. It's a pretty cool feeling.
That's one of the things I was going to ask you about later, is like, because you've now had this idea, this design, you've then gone down this journey, and it's changed, it's modified, and you've made it, and now it is on your wrist. So I can imagine, even if it stopped there, which I'm sure it will not, I can imagine just that alone is very cool.
Well, it is, and I will talk to you a little bit about my philosophy behind that, but we will get there.
So sorry.
Yeah.
You've got the design in your idea, or an idea. You've added a story, which I think is an absolute great way to go, and certainly it grabbed me when I first spoke to you. You've then sort of trying to figure out how to create that sort of image in your head into a 3D model or a better design. So is that sort of the next thing you sort of looked into?
Yeah, exactly. And again, depending on what is your background, that process might be easier or more difficult, because you have three main options there. The first is that if you have a design background, you can design it yourself through, there is specialized programs for that, but that's not my case, which means you need to use the other two routes, which is hire a professional watch designer, or actually work out from your sketch, which send it to the actual production partners and work from there, because they need to do engineering designs, let's say like construction documents. It will be like the equivalent in the architecture. So they need to do construction documents in order to be able to produce the watch. So you can either design it yourself, third party the design to a designer, and to the last step, which is construction documents from your sketch, working with your production partner.
How much? Sorry, Tony. I know it's going to be hard with the phone call. No. How much detail does that factory or that the manufacturer need? Because obviously, I can imagine if you had a designer do it, they would do it perfectly, exactly what this manufacturer is going to need. But if you do that third version, I assume just a drawing on a napkin is not going to be good enough. But
well, it's quite challenging, because for the design to actually be built, you need to understand the set of dimensions of the watch, thickness, log to log, all the sizes around. You need to understand how the movement that you want to use enclosed in that thing. You need to understand how the construction of the dial is going to be, if it's going to be a multi-layer dial or it's going to just be a flat dial, what will be the materials, a lot of stuff. And to be honest, if I would need it to do again, probably I would just hire the designer, because probably that's the most easy way to handle it. And I will explain you why in the second.
As opposed to going direct to the manufacturer, as you're saying, you work it all out with the designer first, and then give that design to the okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do next time. This time it was not like that. This time I actually, because this is the third challenge that you will confront. You need to find a reliable production partner, which is really, really difficult, particularly if you don't have the ability to go to China, like personally, to actually check the factories.
So did you just jump onto Google, and like, how did you then, because obviously we know, okay, I need somebody to manufacture a watch, but then I think I'd just be going to Google and go for what's manufactured.
Yeah,
What did you do?
I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that. I tried the first time like that, but there is thousands of sites that looks legit, and they ended up being just shady places that will just grab your cash for the sampling process, and you will, never hear of them again. Fortunately enough, if you want to do it properly, again, you should go to China. However, in my case, I was fortunately enough that one of the business partners of my actual life, in my actual real work, apart from watches, he's located in Singapore, and he has offices in China, in different cities of China, and he's a really, really good friend. So I make a research, more extensive research through Google and through the people that he knows over there in Asia, and we find 4 factories, and I ask him, because again, he's a good friend, if he can send someone from his team to actually visit these factories and actually request, because in China there is some sort of it's like a credit score. I don't know how to other way to explain it, but it's like a social credit score. I don't know how to say it. Like you have points for doing good business. So it's like a certificate that you are a good business person. And they have other certificates like license of operation, manufacturing license, other stuff, right? But basically, my friend helped me to send a person to actually audit all these 4 potential production partners that I found, in order to check that they comply with the law, that they had a good credit score, that that they were respectable providers. So once I had that, I start my designing process with the 4 fabrics at the same time, which it was quite challenging, because in China they don't really have one of the fabrics has, to be completely honest, one of the fabrics has a really, really high level of communication. They talk perfect English, but the other 3, they have really, really hard. It was really difficult to communicate to them. So imagine trying to transfer the sketch from a napkin to a guy that is using Google Translator to answer to you. And they ended up, like all the 4 fabrics ended up with a similar enough watch, but with a slight difference. So at the end, once I got all the prototypes, and I will go to that point there, is when I actually was able to decide on what that design I was going to set.
Wanted.
And that's not ideal.
No, I want to. Sorry, stepping in there again. It's, my background, my day job is like I'm in engineering, and very much we have, like you say, you got engineering drawings. You do the design. Usually, a design house would do the design, or an in-house design house, and then you take that and you go out for quote to build whatever you've designed, and then you normally go to, like you say, 3 fabrics. When you're talking fabric, you're talking about fabrication manufacturers, right? 3 manufacturers, and then they will give you your quote based on your design, or they might modify the design and say, look, we can't do this, we'll have to change this to make it work, or whatever it is. So I can see what you're saying. The process of having to design from scratch from each manufacturer would have been painful, and yes, I feel your pain there. I don't know how I would do it if it's in my day job. That sounds painful.
Yeah, it was quite challenging, but yeah. I mean, actually, it was a great learning curve, because
would be.
I start with the different factories in different, like, with a few weeks of difference. And surprisingly enough, all that I was learning from the first iterations of the sampling, it helped me to give better instructions along the way. But in any case, second step, design your watch, and ideally having one set design for you present to your potential 2 or 3 production partners in order for you to receive a quote and actually have a similar product that you can compare and decide what would be the best. So the third step, like how it should be done normally, is that actually contacting the production partners once you review that they are checked, and send your designs to them. And it could be even conceptual designs. They doesn't need to be all full construction documents, but they need to at least say the minimum dimensions of the case, how the dial should look, and how the movement, what the selected movement you need to have in order for everything to work, because that is like a really, really critical part. And it's quite challenging to find the movement. And that's actually something that was a happy accident for me, because since I was not set up in a movement since my design, I was able to change movement or to try different movements in my design iteration with the different fabrics. And obviously different movement have different capabilities and different prices. So if you set up too early, like for example, if you start saying like, I'm going to use this Swiss, I don't know, Ronda or Aneta or whatever, once you enter in the production partner, if you want to change that, it would be really, really difficult, and a significant part of your cost of production will be already closed, and there will not be discussion on it. So again, in my case, I was able to play around on what movement, what will fit better my idea, because I didn't have like a designer in the second step. But once you get there, you receive a quote that basically it has like 2 different, let's say, parts. One quote is for the actual sampling process, and one quote is for the mass production. The mass production quote is referential because they only keep prices for around 90 days, and more likely you will not start producing the watch 90 days after you receive the sampling, because there is still a lot of other things that you need to do. But it gives you an estimation on how will be the price of your watch moving forward. And the first part is this sampling, which basically includes producing the molds for all the parts of your watch, including case, crown, dial, crystal, case back, strap, even the buckle and all the other stuff of the watch strap, and all the little components, assuming that you are buying a third-party movement, which is the case of all microbrands. In my case, I did exactly what I think most of other microbrands do, is that once you have the factory selected, you ask samples from few of them, which is a pricey endeavor, to be honest. It's probably the most costly part of the process until that point in time. before that always was kind of cheap, but once you enter in the sampling, it becomes costly.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
And you're just talking about costs and stuff, and you don't have to go into your numbers at all, but I'm just trying to get a scale, a magnitude. When you say up until sort of selecting the manufacturer, that cost percentage-wise versus the cost of producing a sample, what are we talking here? Are we talking
Well,
10%,
it's virtually
or
it's
5%?
It's virtually 10% against 90% in that point of time. Once you start adding the actual, let's say, setup of the company and the marketing, then it become like 50-50. Like I would say 40 marketing, 50 the actual sampling process, and 10% or 5% around those numbers for the initial, let's say, conceptualization of the idea.
Interesting. One question I had was you were talking about that, because you're relating and talking to the factory about trying to get the design put together and things. And I can imagine myself coming up with a nice set of dimensions for a design and a nice dial. But I know that I don't have the knowledge enough, as you say, when you talk about movements and things, like I wouldn't know if that would fit within those dimensions, or especially the height of the watch with the case back and the movement and the dial. When you sort of put through, this is the design I want, this is the sort of movement choices I want to try, and this is the sort of the dimensions that I want, did they sort of come back with you saying that doesn't quite work, we have to do this to accommodate this movement, or it has to be a little bit taller because of this and this? Is that...
Well, Chinese, at least in my experience, they never say to you something cannot be done. They at least, I don't know if it's a communicational thing or because the translation or anything, but they always come up with a proposal. But I mean, I will give you one simple example. I have a selection of movement at the beginning because I wanted to do something a little bit different than what it ended up happening at the end. And they present me with a watch that was almost 13 millimeter thick, and it was 24 log width for the strap. And again, I was trying to, obviously my watch has a bold dimensions, but I mean 24 in a strap, it's too much. And 13 in a watch, 13 millimeter high in a watch that's have like dressy vibe sometimes, it's again too much. So they will, again, I think they, and I want to say this with a grain of salt, they are not really analyzing if the design that they are coming up, it's actually appealing. They are just fulfilling the request you did to them. Like, and I mean, if you don't care about details, you can end it up with for me, was pretty difficult because I am not necessarily a detail-oriented person, at least in that level. Like millimeters are important. But I start to I needed to pay more attention to that, because again, they can present you something that looks quite beautiful in the paper, but then when you start reading the little numbers, you understand that there are some dimensions that will not work. So, and then you need to say like, hey guys, this is not working, will not work for you. And then you will receive an answer like, it will work, it's perfect. And you say like, no, it's not perfect, we need to change it. But they are quite responsive, and all of them, at least my experience with all of, when you say this is not negotiable, this is not going to work for me, they find a way to make it happen within the boundaries you have. But you need to have like really, really strict boundaries. And that's the reason why probably most of the people, or the best idea would be to have a design first, because then you have your boundaries already set up, and there is not that much room for improvisation.
And I can imagine if you had a designer, they know all those restrictions and boundaries with movements and things, and they would work that into the design for you. So that wouldn't be a hurdle.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So do the sampling process. That will be like the third step. That step take roughly, depending on your level of completion on the design, between 60 to 90 days. Normally the construction documents take around 30 days to be fixed, and you need to do like construction documents review every week. They are really strict with the timeframes, which for me was horrible because the time difference was well, but we will talk about that in my journey, let's say. But then once you have your production samples done, they send it to you and you receive it in front of your hands. And then you have probably the most critical part of the process, of the whole process, which is deciding what will be the final design and what will be the final watch that you are going to produce. And you basically choose. Once you choose that, it could work a little bit different depending on the watch factory. You can just set like, hey guys, I am going to produce with you. Some of them has contracts, some of them don't have. Let's say that you are going to ensure that your design will be for you, kind of stuff.
I was gonna ask that, but IP and all that is quite, how do you say, from what I've heard in with past designers or brand owners that come on, they've spoken and mentioned about IP. IP is one of those things in different parts of the world. It's different laws around it. And how do you do that? How do you protect your yourself? Is there a contract signed? Or?
Yeah, there is a contract signed with for additional money. They tell you can do it two ways, basically. All factories operate a little bit different, but you can do it two ways. You can actually, if you bring your design it's yours, and you can trademark it in whatever let's say entity you want, and then you can give it to the factories and just trust them. That's one way. Or in my case, the design IP, let's say, it's from the factories itself because it was developed by them. It was done by their professionals, by their let's say specialized professionals, like they are specific for that. So in order for me to get my designs, I need to buy them from them, and basically paying an additional fee, like this is mine and you are releasing all the rights of the designs. And then depending on your jurisdiction or where you operate in the world, you can go to your local agency of intellectual property and register your plans. And that's what I did here in Panama, where I am located. But again, I don't know if all microbrands do that. And I would assume that most of them have their third-party designer. They buy the plans from them, and they have the IP already in their site, and they just sign a non-disclosure agreement or some sort of non-usage agreement with the factories.
Yeah, that's what you end up doing. Yeah. So again, I don't mean to labor on this point, and we can move on from this after this point. But I just thought it was interesting because I saw a post from a watch brand. I won't say who, or a fairly new watch brand. Basically saying that they're being slandered by a fabricator, manufacturer, and for stolen details or IP or whatever, and it's in the courts right now, and don't listen to anything that comes out that's about this. This is all lies, and we're basically suing them or something for slander, and then literally the day later, I saw a post about again someone saying these guys from this company have cheated us, and we're from X factory. So anyway, I just thought it was all very fascinating because this is the kind of stuff you don't really hear about or see about when you're talking about the process. Normally we talk about, we do the design, we go to the manufacturer, we get it done, here we go. But I liked how you talked about the contracts and everything else in the background.
I will give you my personal opinion on that, and that's how I envision the process for in as part of my personal philosophy. Like, I mean, bro, those guys in those factories can produce whatever watch they want, even if they don't have my actual PDF of blueprints. They will pay the amount of money of the Kickstarter campaign. They will buy the watch. They will take 3D images of it. They will turn it apart, and they will make it again. So it's really, really difficult to protect yourself against that, other than the fact that you are being authentic. Like, at the end, I think what will be a differentiation for any of my future clients is that they will know who I am. They will believe in what I am trying to pursue. And if at the end China comes up with a similar watch, well, maybe some of them they will decide to go that route, but the other ones that are respectful of all the works and all the hours and all the passion that is behind the project will still be in the right place. So I think probably that's the most that's the way of seeing it that generate you more peace. Because if you are all the way every step thinking that someone is going to screw you over, and
you're never going to make the watch.
Enjoy, and you will not enjoy the process neither. So you will not enjoy the dance, let's say.
Well said.
And buying into the microbrand is a big thing for us collectors. And I can tell you right now, and anybody who's watching this or listening to this, if you get to know Tony, you learn about Tony, learn about his design, and we're going to talk about that shortly. Trust me, you're going to want to buy his watch, even if you then don't think you can wear it, just because you want to support him. And that's a big reason why I wanted to involve him today and get this, not just this general information, but also talk about the process and that story, because the story behind the Ikara watches is something that I'm certainly bought into.
It's special.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to hear those words. I will try to just maybe go a little bit faster, because I want to be mindful of the time of everyone. So I really don't know how much time we have for this. So, well, once you get your designs, let's say, set it up that this is your design and this will be your design for mass production, then start the most difficult the most difficult part, I would say, at least for me, which is actually start to approach in the market. I am not an expert in marketing. I am a financing background, so I have done what I think was the best, which was obviously going through Kickstarter as my first, let's say, approach to the market, because that it's a way that I can ensure that I will be able to fund the initial production without committing so much more money to the one that I already have spent, which is significantly. But in addition to that, that just is more like a financial mechanism, to be honest. That's, in my mind, is just like a financial mechanism. The most difficult part is how you get people to know you, how you get people to hear your story. And what I got from my experience as a collector, as a watch enthusiast, is that you follow a lot of YouTubers and you follow a lot of people that talk about watches. And it was I can tell you, it was really, really scary, but you start writing to them. Some of them, they answer to you. Some of them, they don't. But eventually, my idea was like, okay, let's try to find these respectable voices that I can connect to them and explain them my idea, and hopefully they will like it, and hopefully I will be able to, let's say, use their voice in a way to tell other people my story. That will be like one of the ways. The second way would be actually, let's say, digital marketing, which is just, setting up an Instagram, start making posts, trying to generate some sort of content around it. The content generation, it's a problem in itself. One thing that, let's say, it's a pre-step to this part is that you need to start like making professional photography of your watches, professional videos, all that stuff that thankfully enough, I found good people in where I am located from that can do it, but I'm not sure it's that easily available everywhere. Actually, I discovered that one of the guys that is taking the pictures for my watches actually take pictures for Kuoe watches from Japan.
Oh.
So it was quite interesting to me, like why a Japanese brand will send the watches all the way to Panama just to take pictures. And I would think it's probably a combination between pricing, because probably this guy here is cheaper than a professional photographer over Japan. But again, that's a thing in itself. But you need to generate all this content for doing it, in using it in the digital marketing. And finally, the third, let's say, strategy, or the third thing you need to do, which again I was surprised, it's like actually contacted people live. Like I, as part of this process, I joined the Red Bar chapter in Panama, which before I didn't even know that it existed. So
it's amazing about being part of this things and creating things. It opened your eyes to more things. I definitely know how you're feeling. And Praka, what's that T-shirt you got on today?
Red Bar.
Yeah,
there you go. Shout out to Red Bar WA in Perth, Western Australia. Sorry.
I need one of those shirts. I don't have one.
This is a prototype.
So at the end, that last part is about finding your own way to communicate to the world that you are there, and to get excitement around your brand in order to get the sales you need to fund the first batch. And I think, there is more other things, but in general terms, that will be like the steps from zero to going to Kickstarter that you would need.
I've got two questions. What was the biggest surprise that you weren't expecting, and what was the hardest bit?
The biggest surprise.
Something
to
unexpected.
I have one. I received one of the prototypes with a dial that I didn't design.
Mystery dial.
And no, well, thanks God it was not even my case neither. But for some reason they mixed up something, so I received another watch from another microbrand or future microbrand. So yeah, that was surprising. I am not working with that factory, obviously, but yeah, that was surprising. And I think that the hardest bit was to negotiate pricing with the factories. They have really hard payment terms, and they are quite savage when they negotiate. And they have this mentality, which I don't know if it's common in Asia, to be honest, but it's like, take it or leave it. This is what I do. You either take it or leave it. And it takes me a lot of time to actually break that barrier. And with some of the fabrics, I was not able to actually pass it. At the end, in some of the cases, I would have just to say like, okay, I will take it, or I not, because they are hard people for negotiate. I would think that has been the most difficult part. And there is another one, but that's more like localized problem of Latin America. I will tell you a little bit more about that later.
What was your second question, James? Did you have another one?
That were the two questions together. I'd be interested to know what follow-up questions you have.
No, I just think it's awesome to see that sort of journey, the transparency around that. So thanks for sharing, I would say. And now you've got to the point of Kickstarter that you said in terms of the mechanics of it all. Let's start your journey to the brand. So kicks off.
So tell us a little bit about you and how you came to that point and came up with the story behind the brand.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am Venezuelan. I am born. I was born in Venezuela. I spent a good part of my summers during childhood living in the jungle, because my father was the tropical doctor in Venezuela. So he used to work going to the jungle to help indigenous communities of Venezuela. The Pemon tribe, the Yanomami tribe, many different tribes, the Waraos, a lot of them. So, of course, as being a son, your father take you, either you like it or not, and say like, you need to be a man, come with me, and stuff like that. And you all of a sudden, city boy, start living 1 month in the jungle full of mosquitoes and animals and stuff. And I mean, for moments I hate it. I cannot believe it to you. It was I cannot lie to you. It was really hard for me at some points. But once you start getting older, you start to remember all those memories with a softer spot, because you start to understand what your parents wanted to show you, And in my case, I think what my father was trying to do is basically teach me sensibility about people, and about the suffering and about the lack of opportunities that a lot of people have. And they are really interesting people. Like the indigenous communities of Latin America. I mean, maybe the famous ones are the Incans and the Mayans, because they were the biggest ones in Mexico and down in the Andes Cordillera. But there is so much other, smaller tribes that they have a really rich history, and they are basically lost because there is no promoting, there is no help, there is no investigation around them, or there is some, but it's like really small. So I had that experience. That experience actually resonates a lot with me. And when I got around 18 years old, in Venezuela, was mandatory to make social service when you graduate from school. So I decided to take it one step further. And instead of going with my father, I went by myself to a place called the Indigenous University, which is basically I don't even know if it still exists. It was an organization in Venezuela for teaching practical skills and academic skills to the, let's say, to the leaders of all these lesser indigenous tribes. And I lived there like around 1 month, teaching math, teaching computer software, a lot of stuff. And in that month, they teach me a lot as well. They teach me a lot of history about their tribes. They teach me a lot of their mythology, which it's super interesting. They teach me about the way they live in. And it was something that was really, really meaningful for me, because it connects you with a part of Latin America that is not necessarily easily accessible. When people think about Latin America, they tend to believe like the only thing we do is reggaeton and something like that. we are more than that. So that stay there and stay dormant for a while. Then around 2015, I received a heirloom from my grandpa, a watch, and that watch ignited my passion for collecting. It was a vintage watch with a really cool story, and it makes me question my relationship to watches, because before that I used to believe that watches were just used as a status symbols, because it's kind of common in Latin America. I probably around the world, not only in Latin America.
Definitely.
But again, the reference that I had at that point in my life is that watches were to show off. This particular watch was a vintage piece, had a really interesting story, so it made me hooked with the watch collecting, and I start collecting since 2015 until still I'm collecting, right? But with a soft spot in vintage pieces. So around 2 years ago, with more than 8 years collecting, I start asking myself, like, why I don't hear about Latin American brands? Why no one is saying, hey, I am Latin American, I wanna produce something that is meaningful and that is cool. And that at that point of time, the only brand that I knew had Latin American heritage was Cuervo y Sobrinos, which is this Cuban brand that now is produced in Switzerland, and it's like more on the high-end luxury segment. But in that point, I say, like, why only these guys are doing that? And with that thought in mind, I say, like, I want to create something. I want to create something that will be affordable, because I think watches are something that should be enjoyed by everyone. I think it's something that it's the only thing that all people have in common is that we have limited time. The only thing that we really have is this time we have here. So because of that, it's something that we need to cherish, and this is something that we need to care and enjoy. So I wanted to create something that was affordable, something that represents and showcase my roots as a Latin American, and that will also have inspirations from the region I come from, and that's how the idea started, right? Of course, when I start talking about this to other people, a lot of people say, like, you're crazy, this is not going to work, like you are smoking ayahuasca or something like that. Like, And I there is this phrase in Latin America that actually it's one of the reasons why the slogan of the brand is that Ikara move with your rhythm. Is that in Latin America we say nadie te quita lo bailado, which means no one can take out what you have danced, which basically means that all the experiences you have are yours to cherish, independently it's the end result. So following that philosophy, I say, you know what? I will try this out, because at the end, if I succeed, I will be stupidly proud of myself. And if I don't succeed, I will still have the coolest story to tell to my kids about this journey, which so far for me has been a great success, because I am talking to people that is all in another part of the world. You know, that's just that fact is incredible. But yeah, that's the motto to start. So I started, and when I started, I realized something even more weird or concerning, and it's the fact that there is Latin American watch brands. There is a lot of them. I have met some of the owners along the way, and which is the sad part is that they don't want to showcase themselves as Latin Americans, because they feel that that will subtract from their brands, that they will make them less. I will not mention any of those brands, but if you look inside, you will find that there is a few brands that have Latin American owners, and they just don't want to say it, and it's really, really sad. So coming back to my personal journey, I say like, hey, what can I use from my heritage, or what can I take from my heritage that will mixed up in a cool watch? I always like tank watches. I always like rectangular watches. They are like really, really cool. I think they are unique. And I think there is not that many affordable options for that style of watch. And most of the affordable options tend to be quartz, which is not bad, but it's not what I would like to have. So I say, okay, let's start with a tank or a rectangular profile, and let's see how I can twist that in a Latin American way, let's say. So first of all, most of the tank designs come from the Art Deco movement, which in Latin America, it was quite prominent, but it came later than in other parts of the world, because sometimes things get a little bit later here in Latin America. And because of that, when it came to Latin America, let's say a little bit outdated from the rest of the world, Latin Americans take the Art Deco movement and they make it their own, and they start producing buildings or making buildings among other arts, or other, let's say not arts, but among other expressions, and they start taking reference from the indigenous tribes of the Latin America, and they start using it as part of the inspiration for the Art Deco buildings and the Art Deco designs of the region, which is quite contrasting to what, you know, Europe and America did. They used, you know, Roman and Egyptian, let's say, inspiration. In our case, it was our own tribes, the Mayans, the Incans, or the Waraos, or so. I think that was quite unique. So I select few buildings from Brazil, that have some design cues that I later incorporate in the dial to make an Art Deco watch with an Art Deco, Latin American Art Deco dial. Then I start to thinking how I can make the case a little bit different. And I take inspiration in Caracas, in some part of Caracas where I'm originally from. There is a lot of brutalism that was developed during the 60s and the 70s in both Venezuela, Brazil, and Colombia. These are these, super hard, squared, concrete buildings, that have really rough and robust feeling. So I say, you know what? I want my case look like that. So I start cutting the angles of the case to make it as, I wouldn't say aggressive, but kind of aggressive. And I decide to use a brush finish instead of a reflective finish or a polished finish, because I think that will translate better this feeling of concrete that the brutalism buildings have. And finally, I take motifs, indigenous motifs that I saw during my time in the jungle from the Pemon tribe, in order to make the sun, which is the let's say the logo of the brand, which is the sun, the Ikara sun, which it's nice because Latin Americans, we are sunny people, and also that sun, that let's say rhomboid sun helped me to balance out the small second complication that I wanted to put in, not complication, layout, the small second layout that I wanted to put in the down part of the dial in order to balance a rhomboid, let's say, pattern, which is really prominent in all Art Deco, but it's really difficult to execute in watches because it breaks with the symmetry of the watch. So it was, quite a challenge to make all those things blended into the design that I think it works. And that was the inspiration. The brand is called Ikara because Ikara means roots in the Pemon language. And the reason why I wanted to choose that word, it's because I want this watch not only to represent my roots, my personal roots, but also to represent the roots of everyone. I think the important part is, I think this is more about the philosophy of the watch, of the watch brand, or my philosophy behind the watches. It's like your roots make you stronger, like a tree. And whenever the times get windy and the rains come, if you have strong roots, you will find your way. So I think that is what I want to convey with that name. Like, keep your roots strong, cherish your time, and follow your own journey. And if along the way you find one of my watches, and you enjoy the design, please feel free of be part of this, of how I see life. So I think that will be a summarized version of how the idea came from.
That's well said. I mean, just that your I'm gonna butcher this. The piece de resistance, right there, the final what you just said, really sums up your journey and your story and everything else, going into this watches. And James, I'll echo what you said before as well. I mean, I've heard many stories so far, many brand stories so far, but yours is definitely up there with one of the most interesting stories. So yeah, appreciate it.
Thank
And
you very much.
it all comes together, and it just I feel like I've got a connection to these watches already, and I haven't
Yeah,
even had hands on with them yet.
exactly.
Well, I hope I will be able your pieces for review soon if everything goes well with the packaging. Now I'm fighting with packaging. Packaging is a stuff as well.
Yeah, don't forget packaging, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
fantastic.
So I will be featuring the watches when they arrive, and I'll get a nice review out for them as well. So if people want to see them, and definitely worth a look, because I can say the story is great, the idea is great, the execution looks fantastic, but also the design does look very cool. I'm
Yeah.
quite excited to see them.
Can't forget the most important thing, the watches. You know, the
Yeah,
watches.
Yeah.
Story's great. Give me the watch.
Give me the watches. Yeah, I want to have a look at the watches.
Sorry, I get philosophical. I'm sorry about it.
No, it's good. It's good. I mean, yeah, I probably gone into this type of conversation a lot of times. I mean, end of the day, you know, everyone is trying to do the same thing, right? You read what time it is, or you want something that looks good. But what's special is that connection with the story, with the brand. You know, once you have that connection, especially with micro brands, you know, you're buying not only the watch, you're buying the story, and I think that's so important. And you've done it really
I
well
agree.
here.
Thank you very much. I am really honored to be able to be here. I as I told you at the beginning, as I told you both of you at the beginning, I have never in my wildest dream, I have never imagined I was going to be sitting here. I actually, you know, I see the videos of James before, and it's kind of surreal, like talking to a guy that you see in your screen, you know, like it's like, wow, this is wild.
We're in the room with a celebrity. I was
Yeah.
I think we
You're
all
a
have the same
celebrity, my
feeling
friend.
about this. A minor celebrity.
I was sorry. I was watching a video showing my son some, you know, I don't know, some Pokemon game tutorial or something, and then, you know, it goes into the next video and it's a subscription list, and it's, you know, it's a video that James released, and it's just like, oh, Dad, that's your friend. He's on YouTube, and I'm like, yes, he is. Yes, he is.
That's
Uh,
cool. That's
yeah, it is
pretty
cool.
cool.
That is cool, right?
That's pretty cool.
Awesome, awesome.
It's one of my favorite things of this whole watch journey, and something that is probably still the biggest surprise to me is just how it's expanded my life and connections with people around the world. And it's amazing. And, you know, meeting Praka, and now I've got good friends with Praka. Now I've got you, Tony, as a good friend, and it's lovely, and it adds to this love of these little things that we enjoy, and
Yeah.
this shared sort of passion.
Yeah, it's connection. It's
Yeah.
the people. That's what makes it special. And yeah, for sure. All right. Well, look, I think we've achieved what we set out to achieve in this episode / video that's going to be. Any final words, Tony?
Wow, that sounds scary. Any final words? I mean, no. My words, my final words for this episode / video would be really thank you to both Praka and James for being so supportive. I really appreciate all the advice you have given me along the way, because I know you, both of you, for quite a bit now. I'm really grateful to be here, and to any potential client of Ikara in the future. Uh, I will be setting up the pre-campaign of Kickstarter soon. I think it will be launched on around December. At the moment, I have my Instagram account that you can start following if you want, and I can promise you, any potential client, that I will do the best I can to produce something meaningful and something that you will enjoy and that will be cool to be part of your collection. And I will be in this side of the world, trying to provide the best product and experience possible with my brand. Thank you very much to both of you for having me in this dual episode. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for taking the time out to be part of it as well. And I'm sure Praka will do this as well, but we'll leave links in descriptions and things for
That's exactly what I was
Instagrams
going
and
to
bits and
say.
pieces as
Yeah,
well.
we'll leave all the links in the description for sure. And yeah, that's it. James, thank you. Thanks for making this happen. And yeah, if there's I normally would wrap up with something interesting. I mean, I'm happy to do something, and then but I feel like this whole episode was definitely an interesting episode. So I think we can wrap it up there. And yeah, if there's nothing else, we'll leave it there. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
No,
See ya.
thank you very much. Thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for listening.